Hello, everybody. My name is Deshaun. Welcome to the Comic Gamer Movie Show. Today, we are here to review Legion's episodes 1, 2, 3. Now, I was going to just review episodes one by one, but I was like, you know what? I might as well just kind of group them together and review them in chunks and kind of just come at them from that kind of perspective. And I'll just come back 2 episodes from now and just review episodes 4 and 5. But right now, Legion episodes 1, 2, 3. Now, if you have watched the original show Legion, then you know that this show is one of the smartest and trippiest shows on TV right now. Wager to say that Legion is probably one of the smartest shows I've ever seen. It's probably one of the most well-crafted shows I've ever seen in terms of actual thought being put into what it's doing and the execution of it. And in terms of just you could tell the people behind this are really big thinkers because, if you didn't know, the people who made this show or are making this show are the same people who've done some of the stuff on Fargo. And that guy, I think his name is Noah Hawley. He has done some amazing work on Fargo and stuff like that. So he's a really good director. So he's helping direct this. He's directing this. So you kind of knew it was going to be a really smart show from the jump. But Legion is a character introduced in the X-Men. I can't quite remember when he was introduced in the X-Men, but he was introduced in the X-Men, so he is a part of the X-Men universe. And even in the show, it's kind of alluded to that he is still in the same world as the X-Men, but the X-Men aren't around yet, but it's in the same world as whatnot. And he is Professor Charles Xavier's son, aka Professor X. Yes, he is Professor X's son, illegitimate son that he didn't know he had with Moira McTaggart. If you're wondering who Moira McTaggart is, if you've ever seen X-Men First Class or X-Men Apocalypse or even X-Men Days of Future Past, that woman who Professor X is really good friends with, who is really attracted to, he ends up kissing her near the end. Him and her still have an interesting thing. Well, apparently in the comics, they kind of had that same thing going, except one time they hooked up and he knocked her up. He unknowingly knocked her up. And I don't even think she knew, because I believe they got together and he erased her memory to keep her safe. But I believe it was something along the lines of they were in love, but he knew they couldn't truly be together because what he was and how the world react and all these other things. So he erased him from her memory so that she wouldn't have to lie, so that she wouldn't truly be safe because she doesn't truly know. But I believe they hooked up before that happened, and then apparently they hooked up before that happened, and she ended up having a kid. She ended up having a kid, not quite knowing not quite completely remembering it, but she ended up having a kid by him and never telling him. And then there's some versions where she does know, but she just doesn't tell him about the kid. Either or, he doesn't know about his son. And his son is David, named David, aka Legion. Now, David is in the comics and in the show, David is a powerful telepath. He's quite arguably more powerful than Professor X in terms of his ability to warp reality itself. But the thing that makes Legion interesting, the thing that makes him different, and the thing that gives this show this interesting outlook on it is, what if the most powerful telepath on the planet was mentally ill? Not like Professor X where he's losing things, like literally mentally split personality, hears voices in his head, ill. And that is the love about Legion. In the comics, it's totally over the top. His different personalities make different powers come out. He's just totally over the top. But in the show, it's more, they just play up the telepath aspect of it and the warping reality aspects of it. And they do it in unique and interesting ways that are just downright awesome. And quick little overview of season 1. Turns out the Shadow King, who is technically the first villain that Charles Xavier ever fought, and is the reason he created the X-Men in the comics. The Shadow King is a telepath who is just as powerful as Charles Xavier, maybe more powerful. because he's been around longer. He's so powerful. He's been able to like linger out his own lifespan. That's how powerful he is. He's so powerful of a telepath that he's able to it's discovered in the end that Charles beat him and separated his mind from his body because Charles still didn't want to kill people. You know, Charles he doesn't like killing people, but he separated his mind from his body, thinking that was the best thing to do. But his mind is so powerful that it latched on to something else. It latched on. I'm gonna just go out here and say that it latched on to another telepath, to the next powerful telepath, which was David as a child. It latched on to David as a child, grew inside of him like a fucking like a disease, like a tumor. Grew inside of him like a tumor, and just feeding off of his mind, feeding off of his power, making him crazy. The reason and the way they did it in the show is the more realistic point, because in the comics he's just kind of nuts. He's just kind of born with these issues. But in the show, the Shadow King being inside of his head since he was a small child is what's making him nuts. And the fact that no one understood him and everyone kept saying that he was crazy and sending him to different places over time made him kind of nuts, made him kind of screwy. And all things considered, he's not as screwy as you would think. He's still got his screwy moments, but he's not as screwy as you would think, all things considered. But it's like, they explain it as in, you're not crazy. The Shadow King's been in your head. It's completely fucked you up. That's why you're the way you are. All of these different things come together. But anyways, in season 1, it's discovered that the Shadow King was in David. He meets this group of like rebel fighting mutants. He ends up loving this one chick. I can always forget her name. He ends up getting with this one chick, and she has the ability that when she touches people, she switches consciousness with them. So it's kind of ironic that the person she falls in love with is a man who can use his mental powers to transfer like minds and whatnot. But yeah, to like do things in the mind and whatnot. So all that happens, and then in the end, he finds a way to rip the Shadow King out of him, but the Shadow King jumps into the body of another powerful telepath, who's not as powerful as David or as Charles. He doesn't seem to be that powerful, but he jumps into the body of him while he was helping, takes over his body, and rides off to the sunset, and that's how season 1 kind of ended, on that kind of sad note of, oh man, that guy's done. Now, just for a little bit more preview, the guy I'm talking about, telepath, I think his name was Oliver. He was the husband of the main rebel leader lady, who she seems like she's just human, but he was the husband of her, and he got trapped in his own mind or something crazy like that. And David managed to rip him out and save his life, and save him in the process. But, now he's got the Shadow King inside of him, and riding shotguns. So that's how season 2 starts off, with just that, the kind of overview of that. But then let's finally get into actual season 1. I felt like I had to tell people that, just in case you haven't watched season 1, to tell you just go back and watch it, but I just give you a little preview so you can know where we are. But go back and watch season 1, because it's a good season, it's a really great season, and you can come back and watch season 2, and it's only been 3 episodes in. But episode 1 kind of starts with, because in season 1, there was this opposing, like, government group, and you kind of thought it was going with the prototypical X-Men thing, with these government groups trying to kill them. Turns out the government group really wasn't trying to kill them so much as they were trying to stop the thing that was inside David. And, like, because when season 2 starts, it's like David's like been in a coma or something, or disappeared for like a year or some shit, and like they finally find him, and it turns out, and now the group that he was with, the little rebel mutants, are working with that government organization. Like I said, I can't remember the name of the government organization, because like they kind of all blend together, but they're working with them now. But it turns out that they're like, well, look, we didn't know where each other stood. Like, we just wanted to stop you guys because we thought you guys were trying to, because we found evidence that you guys were harboring, the most dangerous mutant on the planet. Because they're like, there's something inside it. Like, they thought that he was like a reincarnation or something of Farouk, aka the Shadow King. But that's the reason they were all up in a hubba and like trying to hurt those guys. It turns out, no, we're on the same page. We just want to get rid of the Shadow King. And once Shadow King's out of David, now they're working together with him. They're a part of their little agency. It happens really fast. They're part of the little agency. And David wakes up, has no clue what's going on. He's like, where's Sid? Wow, there it is, Sid. That's the girl who has the powers and he's in love with, who has the ability to change identities, and he's in love with. Her name's Sydney. Sid. He calls her Sid. and they have I love their relationship. Probably one of the best I'd probably say one of the best romantic relationships in a comic book show right now, because you could just understand that they both feel isolated. They both feel like they can't do anything. But I love it when they first meet up again in season 2, because because they can't actually make physical contact. But David's so powerful that he can like link both of their minds together and make a fake little mental reality where they're like having sex as much as their heart can content. They're kissing as much as their heart can content. They're just doing all this stuff, even though they know deep down it's not real. It's good enough. You know what I mean? It's like they can still somehow have a relationship because even if they can't physically actually touch, he can do those little mental things that at the end of the day will still suffice in a weird way, because the mind tells you what's real, which is the one thing this show season 2 is doing fucking awesome. There's these breaks in between the episodes where like this guy will come on, and I don't know who it is. It might be one of the guys on the show, but this narrator will come on, and it's like you're going through a psychology lesson. He'll stop and he'll go, "What's the meaning of madness? What's the true meaning of madness? What's the true meaning of a tick, of a tick in someone's a mental tick?" And like he just like goes through these whole things of like, and I love this one I might just say because I loved it. It was just like, man, that's so fascinating. And he was like, the narrator was like, well, reality is basically relative. It's relative to what you believe, because if a person grows up in a household and is told that green is blue, and is told that green is blue his entire life, and no one ever contradicts that, no one around him ever contradicts that, he will believe that green is blue. Does that mean that he's wrong for believing in that? Perhaps. But like it was like this interesting thing of, he said the reason that man are the only beings on our planet that can actually go legitimately mad is because we have to come together and we have to keep lining up the reality with each other. We have to keep telling each other what reality is. Like if everyone across the world got together and started saying that red is blue and that's what it was, everyone would believe red is blue. Therefore, reality is what mankind agrees on, what agrees that reality is, which means it can change, which means it's not set. Like it's like this interesting psychology study of it, and like the whole thing, and every time he does it is to show another layer in David, in that David can manipulate reality itself. He is a god. And at one point in episode 2, he eventually meets, it's discovered that David had met Farouk, that he had met him and he had seen this future version of Sid, who told him to save Farouk because something's coming that's gonna kill everyone, and they're like, you need to save the Shadow King because we're gonna need him. And he's been working with him the entire year to keep him hidden as it's discovered. But there was this awesome little sit-down scene. I'm kind of combining all 3 episodes, so I might go back and forth between the 3 episodes. Just go back and watch all 3 episodes and you'll get what I'm saying. There's this awesome scene between David and the actor who, I don't know, the actor looks just like the Shadow King from the comics. I don't know who the actor is, but they have this awesome scene where like he's just talking to David and he's just like, we're gods. It's time for you to get on the big boys table, okay? It's time for you to stop worrying about these man problems, about these normal people problems. Dude, we are gods. Bigger than Jesus. Whatever we say goes. Like we could snap our fingers and a reality would be different. And I love that, because like it was like them just acknowledging this show. I can't believe it, but this show does the best job of showing pure power, scary power that I've ever seen. Like it is scary how powerful David and Farouk are. It is scary. It really is. Like when you just see how powerful they can be when they want to be. And but anyways, they have a couple like mental battles, like telepath battles, which you'd think would be like, which in comics and such and other things, like telepath battles, just 2 guys holding their temple and just kind of looking at each other and maybe like some beam hit. But in this telepath battle was like they went into this dark room and they just started escalating. Like like they started off as just wrestlers, then Farouk got a sword, and then David got a tank, and like it's like this escalation of things. It's like, no, it's like this is what it is. It's like a telepath battle. It's like these 2 beings on a different plane of existence just coming at each other, and it could just be different. Like in the first telepathic battle they had, it was a dance battle, which is weird and just unexpected, and it made no sense because the show does such a good job with that. In fact, there's these robots on the show, season 2, that are like these brain dead, kind of like they kind of remind me, like the way they talk and move kind of remind me of RoboCop, but they're just chicks. There's these chicks with these cuts, these weird short cuts on their hair, they got this weird haircut, and they have these mustaches, these thick mustaches, and like at first I was like, this is ridiculous, but then like there was an episode, I believe it was episode 2, where they're sitting inside of a truck with them. And it dawned on me, I'm uncomfortable with staring at these women with these mustaches who got these cold look in their eyes, these haircuts. It's like, I'm totally a little uncomfortable right now. Like, I'm not sure, I'm like, this is what the director intended for. He intended for me to feel uncomfortable. He intended for me to not really be able to grasp it. That's what this show does in spades. This show does so many things that just make you go, I'm not sure what's happening. I'm not sure how to feel about it. It's like, it's a lesson in psychology, man. It really is. It's a lesson in psychology. Like, I would not be surprised if the guy who wrote the show was a psychology major, because he just plays with your head all the time in the show. But anyways, leading into that's pretty much episode 1 is this Legion, them asking him where he's been and him being like, I don't know, him meeting up with all these different people, turning out, and then it kind of turns out in the end, he already knew where Farouk was the entire time. Episode 2 was a little bit more of the same. They kind of talked about a little bit more of the same greatly executed, except it turns out that his two friends, that he has these two friends who they're both mutants, and he's like the head scientist, but he has this ability that he was born with, which is a weird mutant power he was born with, is that there's another being inside of him. It was a little girl. It's shown in season 2 too, just this little girl. But as long as she jumps inside of his body, he ages on the outside, but she'll stay the same age. And that's how it works, and they've been doing that for years. She's been jumping in his body and then not aging, and she's been jumping out of his body to have fun. He deals with the reality hardships of world and so on and so forth. And that's why he looks like an old man and she looks like she's just like 23 years old, because she is just 23-year old and he is an old man. But now something happens and they can't go inside of each other anymore. I know that sounds nasty, but they can't, he can't absorb her anymore, so they're stuck on the outside. So they're working with them. She's got to realize that she can't just have fun. She has to have to live a life, and that's going to be news for her. Might end up making her just more independent. And they got this weird symbiotic thing that's just so kind of creepy, but sweet all at the same time. Like I said, the show's just fucking with me. I know it is. It's so weird and creepy all at the same time. But he's a good guy. He's a scientist, and he creates a Cerebro, sort of a Cerebro, but not quite, and it enhances David's telepathic powers. Needless to say, Farouk been kind of coming up in there and killing a bunch of people and screwing with people, and eventually he ended up coming up in there and killing basically everybody. It's crazy, man. It's nuts. But it turns out that Farouk needs to find his body, because he can just put his mind back into his body, and these monks who are basically designed to stop telepaths, because their minds are basically just like ridiculous to the point where telepaths don't even you can't even get inside of them. Like, it's weird. The show gets really fucking nuts. And Farouk came in there and and then one of those monks came in there to kill David. He trapped a bunch of people in their own minds, and David had to get him out, and he ended up actually in the and the reason he came to, because he didn't want Farouk to get his body, because they keep saying it over and over again that if the Shadow King gets his body, he's unstoppable. If the Shadow King gets his body, he's unstoppable. They actually showed Charles Xavier. Like, there's this image that starts in episode 3 where the Shadow King Farouk, he's in his normal body, he's sitting there staring. And if you look inside of his glasses, you can see this battle between the actual manifestation of what he thinks of himself as, and you can see a bald man with a tie on, shooting blasts at him and fucking him up, and then he just falls down because he separated his mind from his body, so he's basically brain dead. But you saw Charles Xavier for a second there, and I'm just hoping they introduce Charles Xavier. I'm hoping they show him. I don't know who the actor they're gonna bring in. I hope they bring in McAvoy or Patrick Stewart. Probably McAvoy, and just age him up a little bit. Maybe Patrick Stewart. I don't know. We shall see. But Legion season episode 1, 2, and 3 from season 2. All of them have been great. I'm loving it. I haven't missed it. I'm enjoying myself. I hope they introduce Charles Xavier. I can't wait to see what happens if once Farouk gets a body. Is he going to keep his promise? Because as it's discovered, Farouk actually took his friend and has her consciousness inside of him, which means Farouk can absorb other people's consciousness. And he's telling David that once I get my body, I'll just go away and I won't bother anyone. And I can't believe David's stupid enough to believe that, but we shall see. Thank you everyone for joining me on the Comic Game Movie Show. Please comment below. What is your favorite episode of Legion? Have you ever heard of Legion? Do you want to hear more about Legion? Comment below and I might do that. Thank you for joining me on the Comic Game Movie Show. Please remember to like and subscribe. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye, my peeps.